All right, we're going to break down a playbook from 5 of the absolute greatest basketball coaches of all time. But here's the thing, it has pretty much nothing to do with X's and O's and everything to do with leadership.
I know, it might sound like a bit of a stretch, but just think about it. The strategies these coaches use to manage insane pressure, massive egos, and that constant pull between process and just winning, well, those are the exact same things you're juggling with your clients and your teams every single day. The court and the conference room, yeah, they're a lot more alike than you think.
And these are the 5 legends we're learning from today. John Wooden, Pat Riley, Phil Jackson, Gregg Popovich, and Steve Kerr. In the world of basketball, these guys aren't just coaches. They're basically the godfathers of modern team leadership. Yeah, they all won championships, but how they did it is what's fascinating. Each one mastered the human element in 5 totally distinct and really powerful ways.
We have to start with the true grandfather of this group, John Wooden. You can think of him as the moral architect. He's the one who built the very foundation that pretty much everyone else here stands on. See, his whole approach wasn't really about winning games, it was about building character.
For Wooden, success wasn't about what the scoreboard said at the end of the game. Nope, it was an internal thing, a peace of mind. It's that feeling you get when you know deep down that you gave your absolute best effort. His philosophy was simple. If you mentor the person to be excellent, the great player, or in our case, the great employee, will just naturally follow.
And this just illustrates his philosophy perfectly. Wooden famously spent the first practice of every single season teaching his championship-level college players how to put on their socks and tie their shoes. Seriously. Why? Because wrinkled socks cause blisters, and blisters mean you can't play, which loses games. The business parallel here is just so direct. Sloppy slide hygiene, typos, bad data, it all leads to a loss of client trust. And that loses accounts. It all comes back to this. Mentorship starts with the absolute basics.
So how do you actually use this? Let's say a junior consultant's slides are a mess. The Wooden move is to forget the big, fancy strategic idea for a minute. You say something like this: you know what, we're not going to review the strategic recommendation today. Instead, let's go back to the raw data extract. Show me how you validated these 3 rows. See what you're doing? You're teaching them that precision is the price of admission for persuasion.
Okay, now let's move to the next generation, because this is where the path really forks. In the 90s, you had these 2 fierce rivals, Pat Riley and Phil Jackson, and they basically defined 2 completely opposite leadership styles. It was East Coast grit versus West Coast zen, the commander versus the guide.
On one side, you have Riley. His mentorship style was forged in shared suffering and just ridiculously high standards. He was always fighting what he called the disease of me, that's selfishness, and his weapon was a team covenant. Then you have Phil Jackson, who was managing some of the biggest superstars on the planet, like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. He couldn't just force them to submit. So instead, he used mindfulness and intellectual curiosity to kind of guide them towards selflessness.
Let's dig into Riley's covenant idea for a second. He was absolutely convinced that selfishness is the poison that ultimately kills championship teams. So what was his solution? He created a pact, a promise of shared sacrifice that everyone had to buy into. In the consulting world, that translates to building a team culture where everyone feels collective responsibility for the entire final project, not just their little piece of it.
Okay, so picture this. Your team is exhausted. People are maybe starting to quiet quit. The Riley move here is to reestablish that shared standard. You call a meeting and you say, look, I know we're all tired, I get it, but we made a promise to the client and to each other. We can coast and deliver something that's just fine, or we can dig in. So who is with me? You have to make people choose excellence over and over again.
Now let's completely flip the script and look at Jackson's method. This is fascinating. He would famously give his players books on road trips, but they were books chosen specifically to address their personality defects. He wasn't just coaching the player on the court, he was mentoring the person's mind. The takeaway for business here is huge. You gotta help people grow by addressing their psychological blocks. Things like arrogance or anxiety, not just by improving their technical skills.
So how do you actually do that? Well, let's say you have a consultant who is absolutely brilliant but also really arrogant, and they're alienating the rest of the team. The Jackson move? You assign them a sacrifice role. You pull them aside and say, listen, for this next workshop, your job isn't to be the smartest person in the room and solve it. Your job is to get the junior colleague to solve it. Trust me, that's a much harder skill than just being smart. You're mentoring them to see that real mastery isn't about you, it's about empowering others.
Next up, we've got Gregg Popovich.
Pop is an absolute master of balancing brutal honesty with a profound personal connection. He's the blunt father figure who basically perfected the art of caring personally while challenging directly.
Popovich is famous for these 3-hour team dinners with lots and lots of wine. But it wasn't just about having a good time. He was building what he calls relational leadership. He was creating a family that was so tight-knit they could handle the blunt, difficult truth from him. In the business world, this means you take the heat for your team publicly. You protect them. But privately, you hold them to unbelievably high standards. You're building a bond that's strong enough for some radical candor.
All right, so you've got to give a really tough performance review to someone who's well-liked. It's a tough spot. The Popovich move is to separate the person from the performance. You get them out of the office and you just say, okay, I'm going to be blunt. Your last 2 deliverables were not at the level we need them to be. Now that's the work. Tell me, what is actually going on with you? You fix the work, of course, but you always make sure the person is okay first. Accountability, when it's wrapped in a real relationship, breeds incredible loyalty.
And this brings us right up to today's modern leader, Steve Kerr. Kerr is the great synthesizer. What's so amazing is that he played for both Phil Jackson and Gregg Popovich, and he brilliantly combined their philosophies to create a totally new model of collaborative leadership.
So what did Kerr do? He took the discipline of Popovich and the mindfulness of Jackson, but then he added his own secret sauce: joy and compassion. His entire leadership style is built on vulnerability. For us, this translates to something we can call passing the marker. You know, admitting what you don't know, to empower the junior expert who's right there in the room with you.
Let's say you're leading a project, but you're not the top expert on a specific new technology. The Kerr move is to publicly give your authority to the person who is. In front of everyone, you say, honestly, Sarah knows this architecture way better than anyone else here. Sarah, can you walk us all through how this connects? In that one moment, you're building a future leader by giving them the stage.
So when you step back, you can see this incredible, direct lineage. Wooden built the whole foundation of character. Riley and Jackson took that and forged 2 totally rival paths from it. Then Popovich came along and evolved the model with his deeply humanist approach. And finally, Kerr synthesized all those lessons from his mentors to create a modern collaborative dynasty. It's a beautiful evolution.
Okay, so that was a lot. The big question now is, how do you put all of this into practice? Let's build your personal mentorship playbook right now with a quick championship summary. All right, here are the 5 core moves for your playbook. From Wooden, fix their socks and shoes. In other words, master the basics. From Riley, enforce the covenant. Demand incredibly high standards. From Jackson, give the right book. Focus on that personalized, psychological growth. From Popovich, take the bullet, but give the truth. That's all about accountability. And finally from Kerr, share the whistle. Mentor through collaboration and empowerment.
I want to leave you with one last question to really think about. Look at those 5 styles. Which one of those feels the most uncomfortable, the most unnatural for you to even try? Because that's it. That's usually the area where you have the most room to grow as a leader.